Welcome to Mitchell Levy Presents, where I dive into the essential elements of clarity and credibility. Hosted by global credibility expert Mitchell Levy, today's episode offers invaluable insights to make you think and act more credibly. Join us as we explore living your values, boosting your credibility, and leading purposefully. Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and I am so excited that you're here because I'm actually really excited. I'm here. I'm with Regina Hubert. Regina, glad you could make it.
I am delighted that we can have this conversation. Looking forward
Oh,
to it.
cool. Good. Well, our last couple have been really good. So, this will just be a continuation in a good way. And I'm doing something new. What I'd like you to answer first before we learn who you are is, what is executive presence to you?
Ooh, that's a very complex question. I'm going to keep it simple, as simple as I can, because it is actually a complex construct of many, many things, as you well know. It's a combination of your body language, your external image, your outfit, verbal expression, attitude, and a lot more things. But most importantly, I believe, of your energy, because your energy plays into everything you think, you say, and you do. So the energy is something we should really pay more attention to.
I love that. All right. So now that people have heard that, why don't you put a little bit more context around who you are?
Who am I? I am that I am. Honestly, that always comes to mind first when I hear this question, and it's probably actually the complete answer. But Mitchell, since you're not gonna let me get away with that, I think. Um,
Well, no, I actually I kind of like the concept. I mean, it,
yeah,
it's in alignment with your executive presence response. You are who you are. Who am I? I'm the person who shows up. But
yeah,
just so that people could quickly understand who you are in relation to, from your perspective, what who people, how do they process you? So yes, I
l-
will ask you for more detail on who you are.
right. So first of all, I'm a very freedom focused and freedom loving person. Freedom to me is really key in my life. I grew up in a family of two farmers' lineages, and in my dad's lineage, there was a very strong adventurous spirit. And I must have inherited some of that, I think, and so have other family members for sure. And while I was extremely shy as a little girl, I was also immensely curious, and this curiosity has always, been with me, and it's still with me. And I also wanted to really badly see a piece of the world. So, for example, Mitchell, at 16, I hitchhiked to Amsterdam with a friend from our little village in the southeast of Germany. And then at 19, I moved to Munich. And at 26, I moved abroad for the first time. And since then, I've never really stopped moving. And I've even had a few very nomadic periods in my life, not for like, decades, but yes, I love that actually sometimes. And what's really important, though, when picking a place to move to, is I will not move to a place where I cannot dance. So that's one of the big criteria, right? So I've really had a very eclectic and adventurous life so far, and I've lived in several European countries, in Brazil, in Argentina, in the US, West Coast, East Coast, and I spent quite a few months also on the African continents, not on several trips, not all in one stretch. So I love to travel, and I've mostly traveled myself, and I think that's given me a lot of insight also into other cultures. At the same time, it's taught me discernment. So I've become very adaptable through moving places and traveling places by myself. But also at the same time, I've had to develop this discernment to decide, okay, what's for me, what's not for me. And in all of this, how do I not lose myself and how do I stay true to myself? Another aspect I can share, maybe that in human design, for those who know human design, I'm a manifester, which is also sometimes called an initiator. And that means that people don't always necessarily get me right away. I sometimes tend to share ideas that might maybe a bit too much for some people. And I can also be a tiny bit mysterious. I like to initiate projects, as the word initiator says, but I don't necessarily always like to finish them. So that's a challenge for me, right? And so, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But it's really just a description of a big part of my life so far. And you know, the the way I've lived my life, I call this the freaking amazing life because I've done it my way. And that's not always a perfect life. I've gone through lots of challenges for sure, like most people have, or many people I know have. But it's a life that is aligned with who I am, and I've grown through it. And I believe that I'm coming every day a little bit closer to actually what my essence is. Because, like many people, I'm still peeling the onion in search of my own essence. And that brings us actually back to what I said at the beginning, the I am that I am. So here you go.
There was so much to unfold there. Uh, oh, the one that sticks in my head is the movie Footloose with Kevin Bacon, whose town didn't allow him to dance. I guess that would be not one place you would move.
No,
Um,
or I would have to become Pippi Longstocking then and be really strong. Then I could still
you'd have to be
still
Kevin
do it.
Bacon. Okay. Yeah, interesting. So there's this concept when I'm thinking about what's more important, freedom or dancing?
Well, dancing is freedom. It's a part of my freedom, right?
Mm.
Because there is this freedom of expression, freedom in movement. Just like I love to move from place to place, I like to dance, and that's also movement. But also, I believe that freedom is actually it's it can be in everything because it's not an external thing. It's more a state of mind.
Mm.
So
Tell me
yes,
more.
I
What does
love
that
my
mean? What
yeah.
does freedom being a state of mind mean?
Yeah, so while I love my location freedom and the movement and all of that, I that the freedom is a state of mind means that I can experience freedom anywhere when I practice this state of mind. So it's also the permission to decide how I experience my life, how I'm present with every single moment, right? And that really includes everything. I could apply this to anything.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. So I'm still unpacking your initial construct. And I think there's so much here, but what I want people to listen to is that you've lived an amazing life, although not a perfect life. Um, let's stick on that one at the moment before we dive into essence. So what does that mean that you lived an amazing life, but not a perfect life? Because it's not everything's perfect. I
Yeah,
guess
and I
maybe,
yeah.
yeah. I, let's go down. What does that mean to you?
Well, not everything worked out as I wanted it to work out necessarily at the time, but we all know that there is a reason for that. And in hindsight, it all makes sense, right? It's not always pleasant while we're in the midst of it. Definitely not. Sometimes it even might look like we're completely stuck and we cannot get out of this deep hole of what it feels like. But there, we always have options. And that's also one thing I've learned. There are not only two options as we are taught in school. There are many, many options. There are unlimited possibilities, and there's always a way out. Any so-called adversity holds an opportunity or many opportunities, right? And it depends on what we do with it. So when I'm in a situation, somehow somehow I must have created that for myself, right? So that I couldn't make this experience, have this experience. And then create that growth for myself that then serves me so that I can get to my next level of growth. And that's what I also mean by pulling away the layers of the onion, because we can do that in many different ways. And that's also how we get closer to that, what I call essence or core of who we are. So that's not somebody we need to become because we already are it. We just have all these covers because we're all conditioned, right? So we have been conditioned in so many ways, as you know, and we want to peel the onion now again so that we get rid of that conditioning a little bit, and then really get to know ourselves better, get to know our true desires, because oftentimes we think we want something, but it's not really what we want. It's also just an expectation that we took on from someone else. And these are just examples, but um, I think it's all about really deciding what we do with our circumstances and then making the best of them.
That's twice that you said and used this word. First, you used the word discernment, that you could discern how to be in different situations. And second, that you that we as humans sometimes takes the characteristics of what other people think we should be versus who we really are. Can you give me an example of where that happened for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even more than where that happened for me exactly, what I felt was, and this comes to mind immediately to me, is I for a long time I felt a very strong need to prove myself. And that has to do with those expectations, right? But nobody really actually told me, we expect this from you. Like, for example, my parents, they never told me, oh, you must do this, you should do this, blah, blah, blah. They were actually very, you know, very open. They allowed us all to choose our professions or our paths. There was none of, oh, you know what, we want you to be, typical a doctor, a lawyer, whatnot. That was never there. However, I also grew up as the oldest of five siblings. And so I was expected to be the one who took care of the younger siblings, for example, or to be a good role model, or to be the one who gives in, because we were always told, oh, the older one should really give in because you're already wiser, blah, blah, blah. And or smarter already. And so we learned all these things um, at an early age, and I had this very strong need to prove myself for a long time, and I didn't even notice it. And what that becomes is that when you're not the best or the top in something, that actually eats away your confidence. That at least was the case with me, right? So I had this need to be the best at things. And when that didn't always happen, then I noticed that, okay, that there's something that doesn't work this way in this world. So then I had to find a different way. But it's a bit hard to put in words. I just was thinking about this the other day, actually, how this all came about. But these are also expectations, even if they're not expressed in words.
Hmm. By the way, love your earrings.
Oh, thank you.
They are big. We're going to switch topics a little bit. Where does this concept of freedom come from? That's so big in who you are and how you show up. By the way, I appreciate, just to close what you just said, I appreciate you thinking about you being your authentic self and coming across with the intent and commitment to do the right thing, not for what you think it should be, but because you wanted to live life. That's where I got the with more freedom. Where do you think that came from?
Well, for for one part, I think it has to do with that adventurous spirit. But we also, I don't know if you believe in past lives or not. It doesn't really matter. But we all already come with certain, uh, certain baggage, but also certain predilections, for example, or certain other whatever we want to call it, right? Characteristics and desires. I believe we're not born as a clean slate, right? And that's also why five siblings, like in our case, for example, can be completely different, although they grew up in the same household and in a very similar way with the same parents. Um, so part of it might be there already, okay, to answer your question. And then I have always been very observing, and I would love to be so I would love for this freedom to not just happen for me, but for everyone in this world. I've had this very strong desire for people to have this freedom, and it could look different for different people in the external world, right? But when we also are able to adopt it as a state of mind, then the external freedom becomes easier. And
Guess I should ask first, what's the definition of freedom to you then?
yeah, the definition of freedom is that I can pick I don't want to say the thoughts that I think, because I think that's very challenging. We think about over 70,000 thoughts a day and we don't even know where they come from, right? But I can choose joy over sadness, for example. I can choose my mood. I can choose my the way I behave. I can choose the way I communicate, the way I react or respond to circumstances and to other people around me. The way I live my life in general terms, right? For me, as I said, it's also location freedom, but for somebody else, that might not be important. They would much rather stay in the same place all their life. And that freedom, and that's also a choice. And then freedom is choice. Freedom is choice, and freedom is recognizing this choice.
So what you care about is that everyone has the freedom to make the right choice, but without the influence of others.
Yeah, I think we cannot be without the influence of others, right? Because we all live in those social constructs. And however, you are you have a choice to decide what's right for you, because that's nobody else's business. What's right for you is right for you. Your path is your path. It's not anybody else's path. And that is something very important to relearn for a lot of adults, because we are put in schools at a very young age, sometimes even into kindergarten. And we learn that we need to fit into a system, and we actually cannot choose what we would like to do. And we need to be limited to a uh, certain selection, pre-selected subjects, right? But what if I want to be I don't know, a trumpet player, and I don't want to study math? So I'm not saying we should not study the basics of things we need for, to function in this world. However, school is a very limiting factor in our lives, and we're literally educated out of who we are. So we need to relearn who we are. and what our preferences are, what our desires are that we might have forgotten about. And this is so important. And this is also to do with freedom.
Got it. Love that. So you got me on a soapbox, so I will. Most academic educational institutions around the planet will educate out of the human that's inside who may have grown up with ideas of things. They're going to educate out who they are and how they show up in the world. And so part of what you do is maybe help people really refine who they are. And as you're trying to refine you, how many humans do you think, what percentage of humans have had the educational system sort of strip out who they are and they never get it back?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I can only give you a rough estimate, but I believe that it's definitely a pretty high percentage. I would say it's definitely 70%. Now, don't hold me to it because I don't know if there's any studies
Oh,
about
no, no,
it.
it's a hard thing, but it's just a feeling one has. And,
Yeah.
for
And
someone like
I think
you
most
who has
of
been
us,
to so many different
yeah,
cities and seen so many different things, you're seeing culturally
mhm.
some characteristics across cultures, right? That so your number is empirical, but not a bad number.
Yeah,
Well,
and
actually,
I
a
believe that most
horrible
of us
number.
have that actually at some point in our life. So maybe it's almost everybody, because a lot of us have to really stop for a moment sometimes and decide that it's already enough, and now is the time to uncover who we truly are, right? We learn so many other useless things, like this saying, no pain, no gain. Who does that serve, please? It's a lie. My motto is no fun, no gain, because that's a much better motto to live by. It allows me to be happier. It allows me to feel more joy. It allows me to find the joy in my work. Because if I believe that there's no pain, no gain, then I will always live by the motto, well, I cannot really achieve any success without being in pain mode, without suffering for it. And that's not what we really want, do we?
No, not at all. Regina, who's the perfect client for you?
The perfect client for me is a successful leader or business owner who no longer feels like success, uh, who no longer actually feels like they're enjoying their success. And they would actually like to redefine their success because they feel like they are caught up in their, what I sometimes call the invisible success trap. And I work with them so they can thrive and live fully again. And this is not only about, as we often say, getting your life back and having more free time. That's not what I mean by that, although it could be a piece of it. But it's really about living fully and feeling fully alive and getting that joy back into all areas of your life, including work.
Love that. That goes into lines with the CPOP, the customer reporting of possibilities. We're talking about business owners who are thriving, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. It's love it. We have a lot of overlap, which is great. Um, and I love that this is what you do because we get taught uh the way to be, the way to act, the way to do, and we measure things a certain way, and then all of a sudden we're really successful at the measurement tools somebody else gave us, the rules of a game somebody else gave us, and we recognize that we're no longer getting joy out of it because maybe we're measuring the wrong things.
Right. And you know what, Mitchell, what I love about working with leaders or business owners who have teams, right, is that allows me actually to create a ripple effect because leaders who transform themselves will transform their teams. So I also help them with topics like delegation, like, team engagement and things like that for sure. But if they do the work, if they know how to lead themselves, then this will have a ripple effect and they will impact their teams. They will impact anyone they get in touch with, anyone they interact with.
Mm, love that. Of course. The curious. I got a couple other questions for you, but we'll do this last one before we go into how do people reach you. Um, you talked about still helping you define and peel the onion to understand the core of your essence. And how do you know you're not there yet? And how do you know when you get there?
Well, first of all, I think it's you just know. Because it probably never get there in this lifetime. I don't know. But I think there's always more, frankly. However, we're getting closer and closer and closer because that essence is really consciousness, isn't it, in the end? So if we get really to the end, then we would have to probably leave this human body and get back to that consciousness only. However, as we're here in this human body, I believe that this is a shape that allows us to create that expansion that we are here to create, you know. And this is not only the personal growth, although it's completely related and it's definitely tied to it, but it's we have this urge, most of us at least, to create something, don't we? And that's the expansion that we are here to bring about. And when that expansion feels really good, that's when you also notice that you're getting closer to your essence. And sometimes that changes over a lifetime because, of course, we evolve. What might have been really great for you 10 years ago in that sense, work that you might have enjoyed might no longer give you that same satisfaction because you now want more. And that's also part of human nature. It's nothing bad. We have desires, and those desires push us forward. And these could be desires that we want things for ourselves or certain, whatever lifestyle, or that we want to create something for the world or for our clients, whoever it is. So, yeah, I think most people have that. And if they don't have that, it's usually because there's a certain level of frustration or resignation, even. And that's, of course, not ideal.
So listen, if you're sticking around, I'm going to have one other question after this, so stick around for that one. But if you're a business owner who wants to be thriving and you are interested in reaching out to Regina Huber, Regina, what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yes, LinkedIn is a really easy place. Regina Huber, that's probably just easy to remember on LinkedIn.
Love that. Thank you. All right. So, given this conversation, is there a question I should have asked that I didn't? Or is there a question that you really want that's burning inside of you that you want to get out?
Well, I actually would like to take that opportunity and pass the question to our audience. And that's a question that I have thought about a lot for myself. Where do you find your power? Where do you find your power? Because what's important to notice and remind ourselves every single day is that our power is never outside of ourselves. So if we think we find our power in a position or a role or an achievement or whatever it is, or some type of performance, that's never true power. Because all of that is just temporary and it's a little bit fleeting, right? It also can be taken away by others sometimes. So it's important to know where we can find our true power because no one can empower you but yourself. So where do
Oh,
you
oh,
find that power?
and for you, where do you find your true power?
I find my power when I really become present in the moment. And what helps me connect with my inner power is, for example, it's one of several ways that I place a hand on my solar plexus area, so stomach area, and I close my eyes and I focus on that area and I breathe into that area, because that's where, for most of us, it's sort of in the center of the body, right? And it's where for most of us it's easiest to tap into that inner power, even though it's everywhere, really, right? But that's a place where for me it's easier. And then I breathe into that. I focus on that area because, as you know, Mitchell, what we focus on expands, and where we direct our attention, that's where our energy flows. And then we can really, feel that power. It's really yummy. And then one thing that I like to do sometimes is to imagine that I surround myself with that power. So I emanate it out into a bubble. That's one way, but presence, becoming present in the moment, is so important, because that's where we are the most powerful, I believe.
Mm, I love that. So be present, recognize your power, let it expand because it's yummy. Well said. Regina, thank you so much for joining us today. I really loved our conversation and any interaction that you and I have.
Thank you so much for having me on. I hope this all made sense to people. I know I sometimes I have so many ideas at the same time. I want to talk about everything, but it's just what comes out.
You did great. You did great. And listen, for those that are here, whether you're listening or watching, this is now your time to take action. Take something that Regina said that really resonated with you and share it on whatever social media platform is relevant for you. And tag Regina or tag me, and we'll make sure we respond to that. And thanks so much for joining us here on Leaders Living Their Values. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in today's episode. Like, subscribe, and share your aha moments on your preferred platform. Remember, credibility starts with clarity and living your values. Learn more at mitchelllevy.com. Until next time.